to call the Columbia County Transportation Advisory Committee to order. It's May 6, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes? And I had one addition from Ron. I'll share my screen so I can show you what that is.
Okay.
Oh, Patrice, you're muted.
What's that?
Oh, okay. Can you see the minutes?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see them.
Okay. Not sure why.
Patrice, I don't mind speaking to that. I just wanted to add a little bit of language under the Stuyvesant Falls Bridge project where Patrice had reported that the price had gone up, and the price went up after doing some lengthy engineering work on this project. And, you know, even though there's been some public opposition to this, there has been a lot of communication with the public to try and share information on this, and it has been supported by both the town board, the county board for the project that we've got proposed. So I just wanted to document that there is reasons that the price went up, and we have documented it, and we have done trying to do our due diligence to make everybody familiar with this project.
Okay, so anyone else have any other additions or revisions they'd like to see made to the minutes?
Oh, I'm fine with them.
Okay, so entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve them as modified.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
That's it. Ray?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so next we have the additions, a review of the tip and the updates to the tip. So I'll try and share that now. I did see, I shared the most recent version that Bob Manick sent out the other day to me, and it did reflect some changes.
Yeah, and that's based on just a follow-up from the last meeting where on behalf of the county, I had identified the need for potential additional funding on a few projects. And that was part of the correspondence that Patrice had forwarded to everyone and included in the email the other day, or yesterday. Primarily, the first project had to do with the town of Copake County Route 7A project. And due to a delay in that process, just because we're continuing to go through the section 106 and 7F or 4F process, excuse me, that we anticipate a delay in the construction period of when we're going to undertake that project. And we were able to get an updated budget from the design consultant. So I just wanted to see about obtaining additional funding for that based on that delay. So that construction, I think originally in the past tip, it was identified as being 2025 potential construction. And so now it's looking like it's not actually going to take place until starting construction until 2027. So just reflecting increasing overall cost as far as cost escalation due to that delay. And then the second one, as I mentioned last month, was the Kinderhook project, the Kinderhook Bridge, or excuse me, the Stuyvesant Falls Bridge over the Kinderhook Creek for County Route 25A. And that's based on the more recent information that we obtained from our design consultant, increasing that overall cost. So DOT was kind enough to include both of those requests in this updated tip information. So I appreciate that. Obviously, it still needs to be approved by the CCTAC.
There were a couple of other changes also. I thought I noticed on the Buckwheat Bridge. Did you just talk about that, the Buckwheat Bridge?
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. So Buckwheat, we identified that originally we had anticipated replacing one of the abutments, but in speaking with DEC, based on the fact that it's on the roadjan, and there is a restriction there, they actually want us to increase the overall length of that structure and get those abutments out of the stream banks. So we need to go 1.25 times the average water line. So we needed to increase the overall length of the structure, as well as 2 new abutments for that. So there was an increase in cost there. And so if you take a look at the last item, the local share would need to be increased. It was not eligible because of the type of structure and the road that it served, but at least the tip has been modified to reflect the overall increase and the overall cost of the project, including a larger local share that has to be contributed.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only other change that I noticed was on the Route 9 over Sockport Creek. That increased to 50. It was at 49, I thought.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's just because we rolled in the preliminary design funds. They were initially in the pre-26 column, and now they're going to be obligated in October. So that will be FFY 26.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I know last meeting, you guys were interested in getting updates on the local projects. So I did reach out to Orietta Trocard, our RLPL. And so we did have a couple updates on, the Village of Kinderhook project. They just submitted a PS&E in late April. That's 876283 on the first page if anyone's interested. It's their Albany Ave pedestrian and bicycle projects. So their PS&E is submitted and under review. Just so you guys have an update on that. And then the Town of New Lebanon project, 876343 on the top of page 2. They are expecting to sign a state local agreement and get started. They have a meeting, I guess, on May 13th, so next week, to approve it, the SLA with the town board. So hopefully they'll be getting started on that very soon. Mm-hmm. And then the Town of Hillsdale project at the bottom of this page, they just executed an SLA a couple weeks ago and have not had any design report submissions yet. So they're just getting started as well. But I just wanted to circle back with you guys on those items.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and then the only other potential update would be a new project as well.
I can show that your submittal. Let me get that up on our Let's see, close this one. There.
Yeah, so for this particular project, so it's County Route 3 over the Punzik Brook Creek, town of Ankrum. So this actually is a county roadway that runs from Ankramdale up towards Copake and ties into New York State Route 22. If anyone is familiar with the restaurant called The Ponds, it's located just to the south of that particular restaurant. Other than the other projects or bridges that we're working on at the county level, this is one of the last ones that has been identified by New York State DOT as being in poor condition and was included in the state. I think it was the last overall review was 2023. And so it was built in 1931 as a jack arch. Span is only 42 feet. However, it is located within a wetland area. And based on what has transpired with New York State DEC as far as their desire to increase the overall spans of these structures over water courses, we do anticipate that we would have to replace this in its entirety. And we'd also have to incorporate or would like to incorporate a temporary bridge as well while the construction takes place. So estimated total construction cost is at 3.2 million. Based on the available funding, utilizing the STIP Flex funding, in speaking with DOT, I was hoping that it could at least be programmed to start the project as it pertains to right-of-way incidentals and preliminary design in the upcoming months or upcoming years, excuse me, and then look at targeting the actual construction phase of the project later on, maybe into the next TIP period, starting in 2030. But at least this would allow us to get that process started.
Okay, thank you, Ray. So do we need motions for the changes to the STIP and then also to add the new project? Should we do those in two separate motions, or?
I think that would be appropriate to do it in two separate. Yeah, one to accept the proposed changes and then one to accept the new project.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on the proposed changes to the STIP? Don't have any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Patrice, this is Bob from DOT. Just with this one, and I think Ray has just said 2030. It's just Ray in your text. It says construction started 2029, which would still be in the STIP period, which we probably wouldn't have enough money to do construction on this bridge. Just like you're saying, we probably would be a great idea to start PE. I don't know with a temporary bridge. It throws a red flag for that right-of-way acquisition cost. I don't know how much right-of-way you have in that area, but that typically is a bit higher for something like that.
Yeah, we took a look at the property owners in that area and they were favorable, I guess is the best way of putting it. So we didn't anticipate a lot of pushback from those property owners because I actually did have a discussion with them. But my apologies, you're absolutely correct. I did not update that. That construction period would start not until the 2030 period, if you would. So thank you for catching that.
Yeah, if we were to use something like that, they're positive as long as they get paid, right? And they like to get paid.
Exactly.
But if that's 850, just say preliminary design, detailed design, right-of-way incidentals, and acquisition phases, $850 to $1 million, roughly. I'd be just referring to Nicole to see how much CCTAC has left on their blocks in those years to see if that can be fit, if they want to fit that in.
Yeah, if you look at the TIP listing on the last page, 8 BLK08 is the block of flex funds that remain after making the changes that Ray had talked about to the 7A project and the 25A Stuyvesant Bridge. And you'll see that there's about $2.92 million there. That does include the local match. And I think the years are flexible on that. If we wanted to start design earlier on this new structure, I think we could make that work as well. So yeah, about 2.92 million of flex available to be programmed. And if we don't use all of that for the design of this project, if we're looking at the 850 range for design and right away, those certainly, whatever's left over would stay as a block.
Right.
Okay, unless somebody that Greenport has mentioned in the past about possible sidewalk pedestrian improvements on Route 9. Do we want to do something to start that off for a possible future TAP application or something like that to get it ready? That's another possibility with some of this block money. So something to think about for CCTAC. It can always be saved in the block for now if that decision doesn't want to be made yet, but just something to think about.
Well, I believe in the past, although I know and I recognize the town of Greenport would love to see those pedestrian improvements be made in conjunction with other improvements that DOT may make along that corridor. I believe CCTAC has indicated in the past that CCTAC has felt that it is a state roadway and the state should be responsible for all improvements, including the cost associated with those improvements.
Yeah, they definitely have, but also we haven't seen any TAP applications from Greenport or anybody up there in the last 2 rounds. So I don't know if that's just intentional or they just don't want to submit, but that's what our RPPM mentioned that a couple years ago, that the TAP application would be a good way to go about doing that without having to foot the bill for it.
But does DOT have any long-term improvement plans along that roadway? I think that was in part one of the sticking points with Greenport was at one point, it was Greenport or even CCTAC, our understanding that DOT was looking at the entire corridor, basically paraphrasing from the City of Hudson line all the way up to Stockport, to Atlantic Avenue, and taking a look at that corridor and making significant improvements. But then I believe that kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah, financially for a $15 million project, that's going to have to compete, just like we've said in the past, with the entire 7-county region. And basically, you're going to lose out a lot to Westchester and Rockland counties. That's why DOT is doing maintenance paving up there now, with possibly some drainage improvements. But to get those new sidewalks and pedestrian improvements that I think were desired, the TAP application would probably be the best way to do that.
Did we speak, I thought we spoke one time, I forgot where the funding was coming from, but we did talk about doing a study for that, out of some funding that was available. I don't think I know there was a study done many, many years ago, but I got the answer to that better. But I thought that this committee did talk about okaying some money for a study for that so that we could identify the need for sidewalks and whatnot. Did we not?
Yeah, they definitely did have that discussion, and I think Sandra was there for that one too, where she said she didn't have a problem diverting some state money even towards that study, a couple $100,000. I think we were talking about maybe less than 500 or something like that. But I don't think there was any interest from either the town or the county to implement that study. Sandra had mentioned that the DOT did not have the resources to undertake the study, but the DOT could possibly provide some funding for that study.
Would that study be eligible based on the newer program, as far as the safety improvement program?
The RWD, which we also have to talk about, yes. If there is a safety, a number of accidents, we'd look at the pills. If that is a safety issue, which definitely pedestrian crossings, sidewalks separating pedestrians from the roadway, and bicyclists of safety, sharing the road, that sort of stuff is in that RWD program, the roadway departure program.
Can I speak? Can I say something?
Yes, please.
I had a conversation yesterday and last week, and I sent an email to Gail regarding the intersection. This has got to do with safety on State Route 9 at Hoffman's Car Wash, Delaware, where the light was. Because my recollection was back when we had talked about putting up that traffic light, and I think, Ray, you were involved with me at that time. There was going to be a turning lane there, and there never was one put in. And of recent, there's already been a bicycle car accident, which, as I explained yesterday, the report came out about how much the rail trail is being utilized by bicyclists and pedestrians. And that intersection right there is the main hub for this crossover to get to the other side, to the rail trail. And there is that intersection is a big, big, big safety concern for bicyclists pedestrians, and the numbers have come out from the rail trail as to how much it is utilized. So if I said, with knowing that nothing is going to be done to Fairview except a skim coat, but they don't know if they're going all the way up because they did the other half previously or did certain areas of it previously. Look at that. If you're going to talk about safety, that's going to be a big issue this year with hundreds of bicycles and pedestrians that are going to that intersection. And there's no lights, turning lanes, right side passing on Delaware, which is the crossover, and 1,000 cars going in and out of Hoffman's Car Wash. And one of the things that was suggested yesterday was that New York State DOT would probably do a study on the number of car washes that have automatic monthly renewals because of the large amount of cars that are going in and out of car washes. So with that being said, there's your safety issues.
Kathy, so you met with Gail from Traffic and Safety, New York State DOT? Is that who you mean? Gail Sutter?
Yes. Yep. I had spoken with her.
Did she mention that there would be something called an HSI, a highway safety investigation at that location? Or
No.
Anything? No.
No.
What was the result?
Pardon me?
What was the result of that meeting? Did she?
Nothing. No, I spoke to her. I sent her an email. I had spoken with Tina here in Columbia County.
Okay, so that was the resident engineer you talked to, and then the
Uh-huh.
safety investigator.
Yeah. Yep.
Because the HSI, if they initiate an HSI highway safety investigation, that would also be good for the RWD application, some type of improvement there.
I guess I don't want to be sarcastic, and I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just saying that I'm talking about the highway safety of Fairview Avenue for years and years and years and years and years. And I'm being told that they would do a traffic study of car washes and the traffic that's coming in and out of car washes that now have monthly renewable, unending use per month traffic study to see what needs to be done on roadways. I just couldn't wrap my head around that at all. I'm done.
Thank you very much for your comments. Well, we can make a decision if we want to include Greenport in this or not, or just continue with the projects that were on the submission that Ray provided. We talked about having the two separate resolutions. So if there aren't any more comments, and should we entertain a motion to add the updates that proposed by County Department of Public Works to the STIP?
I'd make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Tony? Who was the second? Was that Tony?
Ron.
Oh,
I was trying to make the motion, but I didn't turn my microphone on.
I couldn't. It's hard to recognize the voices of it's kind of muffled. Okay.
Wait a second. Wait a second. That was Rob.
He snuck in, right?
It's funny on the comment that you say you didn't recognize the voice.
It's his allergy voice, his spring allergy voice.
Ray, just don't go there, that's all.
Sorry. Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
A quick question, either for Nicole or for Bob. So, looking at, actually the slide that Patrice has up now. So the HSIP money that's available for 2026, the 0.476, is that limited to construction?
No,
Okay.
This is safety. This one? This is the one you're referring to, correct, Ray?
Yeah, my apologies, the safety. Yeah, I thought a certain portion of that was limited to construction versus engineering report or planning. And maybe I'm wrong about that.
So this funding that you're looking at in the block is actually, Columbia County's funding to do what you wish with. It's given to you as part of a target, whereas that's separate from the roadway departure safety action plan. The roadway departure
Separate.
that you guys have, similar targets over there, but that is a separate pot of money that you have to apply for. This money, you guys would just have to agree on how to spend it.
Okay.
and it's and the way that it gets confusing, Ray, they both are the same federal fund source. They're both HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. So they both need to be used for safety. RWD is a special program that came out. Part of that was divvied up by counties, and you get so much for your county. That's not what's listed here. What's listed here is additional HSIP money going to Columbia
Okay.
for whatever type of safety qualified projects you want to submit. That's kind of why I was on that Greenport thing a little bit more before, because this is a new fund source to you guys really throughout the years that you're going to be programming for safety type of projects. So just because that money is sitting there in 26, as Nicole's showing it, you may not be ready to spend all that in 26, and there may be some carryover into the next year, but we need to start thinking about what types of projects to program here.
Okay.
You may not have 164,000 in a particular year, but maybe you need 300 or 400,000 in a year. We can combine a couple of them, move them around a little bit within those years, and come up with decent safety projects. And again, I don't know if you've heard back from a couple of the municipalities from the last meeting on the RWD stuff, of basically grouping those together with a few towns, municipalities, and the county would submit maybe a group of them.
Sure. Yeah, I had not. Yeah, I know. I had not heard back from any other municipalities. So again, based on just utilizing as a snapshot, and thank you for the clarification, because I didn't pick up on that. Because I thought they were lumped together, but thank you for clarifying that. So based on just utilizing 2026, and I know that's a placeholder there at 476,000, the local share to that would be 37,000 in that block.
Yeah.
For that year, that block that year. Okay.
Right, because HSIP is traditionally a 90-10 split, so it's a 10% contribution from locals. And as far as roadway departure, that's actually 95-5, so it's only a 5% match. But that, and just another point of clarification, the roadway departure safety action plan, if you guys were planning to submit an application, that cannot do improvements on state highways. It has to be local roads only.
Okay. Got it.
If we don't receive, if Columbia County doesn't receive applications for the full allotment of funding that for the county, does that get rolled over into anything else, or does that just go away if we don't have applications to use all of the money in the roadway safety departure program?
I think we've been hearing that question a lot, and we really don't have guidance on what's going to happen to that funding.
Okay, thank
So
you.
we don't know. So we don't know right now whether, again, let's just use 2026, I guess. We don't know if there are no applications, then we don't know if it's going to be rolled over to the following year or anything of that nature.
So the money we're looking at right here on this tip strip, if you guys don't do if nothing comes out of it right now, nothing happens in 2026, that money will roll into 27.
Okay,
Road departure, that's separate targets. If for some reason we don't get any applications in Columbia County, that's what we're unsure of what's going to happen to that money. And I don't have those targets in front of me, but I think it's something like $300,000 for the program for you guys, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, you're correct. Well, 44 for planning as far as reports or engineering reports, or safety plan, my apologies, the safety plan. And then 357,000 towards construction. So yes, you're right. Okay.
Right. Those are the funds that, we haven't really gotten any guidance on what would happen.
Okay.
And the only thing further I would say is the roadway departure, RWD, it's a specialty program that might go away as fast as it's come in.
That's true.
Whereas what you're looking at right now at the bottom of your screen, the BLK 10, the HSIP money, that's really not going anywhere. That's going to be a yearly appropriation for Columbia County from here on. So if you miss a year, you might want to double up in the next year.
Okay.
And these funds potentially, this HSIP, these funds that are reflected in this spreadsheet could be utilized on a state highway. I'm just thinking of Greenport, if that's a possibility.
Correct.
At least if we're looking at planning. Obviously, that's not going to take us very far construction-wise, but from a planning document, engineering-wise, it could take us a long way.
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly. Right. And it's kind of your strategy on your bridges where maybe you're throwing some flex on bridges now to get the PE and the right-of-way started so that you'd be ready for a big award of a specialty program like Bridge New York that would pay for most of the construction. You could possibly do the same thing with HSIP money here.
Right. So you could utilize the HSIP money for the initial engineering or study, and then in the future, start utilizing flex money to actually implement it as far as construction, correct?
Or specialty money for construction,
Or-
like a TAP application or a TAP award to build a mile of sidewalks along Route 9, something like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Patrice, do we need a separate resolution to add the County Route 3 bridge down there in Ankrum to this as a new project?
We do need a separate resolution for that. Yes.
I would make that motion.
Do I have a second? I'll second it.
Second, yeah, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so Nicole, is there more that we need to talk about for the roadway safety and departure program at this juncture, or did you have any more updates for us, like on the team meetings? Because both team members are here, and I sent that, forwarded that email to save the date. Has that date been set yet, or for the first meeting?
That is still the date. I want to say June 23rd.
Yeah. Okay.
That is still anticipated to be the first meeting, and you guys would hear from me ahead of that meeting with whatever applications we do receive, because the idea would be, similar to Bridge New York, we'll review them ahead of time and come into that meeting with, the knowledge about the projects to have discussions. But again, I don't know what kind of interest we're seeing, so hopefully get some applications.
And what was the deadline on that again, Nicole?
June 13th.
Okay, thank you.
And you guys are welcome to come in for that meeting if you want. I do have a room reserved at URSAB. But of course, if virtual works better for you guys, that's fine too. I just throwing that out there.
Okay.
Do we have any other items to discuss at this point for today? Should we schedule another meeting for next month to finalize all these other, for the HSIP, potentially to have other things added to that, or if there's any other changes, or we need 2 months?
Nicole, are we gonna have to meet and approve the projects that we review on the 23rd? Again?
Yes, I think so.
We'll need a meeting to score those and select what projects we're gonna, end up giving funding to, but we wouldn't need to meet to do any tip adoptions once those projects are decided.
Okay.
We would just, it takes a few months for main office to concur with our recommendations for award. And then once that happens, we would just add those projects to the STIP as they were applied for.
But the
And
CTAC
we
doesn't
haven't
have
met
to
in the
formally-
past to add Bridge New York projects or anything. So
Yeah, okay. The CTAC doesn't have to formally adopt them, what we have findings.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
and then I don't personally think we need another meeting. We've adopted or, approved the motions today to make these changes. The
Okay.
only additional change to the STIP would be adding the design funding for the County Route 3 project. And I can certainly send the STIP listing around again, just so everyone can see it and feel comfortable with it. But I think that's up to you guys if you would want to meet to discuss that further. And we can always, in terms of the HSIP in Greenport, that could be done at any time as well. It could be blocked for now. We could decide later. That's, whatever you guys are thinking on that.
Okay. I guess we'll have to, we need another meeting next month, and we can actually schedule one, or if it needs to be in July after the applications are submitted for the roadway safety departure.
Right, that's a good point too, because if we do get applications and you guys exceed that 350,000 that was allocated for construction, you could also supplement those projects with this HSIP money. So that is a good point.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Just again, noting the difference in local match, right? So whatever you get from the roadway departure would be 95% federal with a 5% local match. And this money that we're looking at on BLK 10 is a 10% local match.
Okay.
Nicole, do you know for the roadway departure, do you know what kind of process that's going to be for review? And the only reason I ask is for implementation, I'm just thinking of Bridge in New York, that still remains again, it's a much larger design. It's a much more involved design. So the process is pretty extensive. Do you have any idea or understanding of how quickly, once the funding comes in place, these generally would be considered a simpler design, simpler construction process, and so forth? Any idea how quickly DOT would turn these things around?
They still have to follow the local projects manual. You still have to get NEPA. You're not going to be, none of that is avoided as part of this. But you're right. In theory, it is a simpler design process, a construction process for a lot of the, systemic treatments that are part of roadway departure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it's as simple as, and again, I'm oversimplifying it. And again, every project's a little different, but I know initially when we talked about some of the eligible items, signage, striping, things of that nature, which some would consider to be maintenance.
Right.
One would hope that process would be a quicker process. And again, I'm just looking from a scheduling standpoint, and looking at the time frames of when an application would go in, when that application would be approved, obtaining the actual contract and agreement with the state, and then moving forward as far as those items. Because again, yes, I recognize we would have to still submit a design. I'm just wondering how, if it was something as simple as striping, signage, any idea what something like that might take?
In terms of, so I'm just thinking Bridge New York, right? It's a similar process. Usually those applications are due in January and you don't hear an award until July or August.
Right.
So, for following that process, applications are due in June, probably not going to hear an award until the fall sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think in terms of SLAs, and IPPs, it's as soon as you guys start working with LPU to get that done. IPPs and SLAs are generally quicker. In terms of what's different for the environmental process and all that, I really think that they do their best to try to keep up with submittals when they can. So I think it's really as fast as you guys could turn them around, we do our best to get them back to you in the same fashion.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to think if it was a simpler project, whether a 2027 construction is even feasible or not.
I think it would be close, but I think it's possible.
Okay.
If you're timely on getting a
Yes.
state local agreement in place, that really.
And that falls on us. I completely recognize that falls on us at the local level as far as getting our ducks in a row, getting
Right.
resolutions put together and agreements signed and so forth. And I do recognize that as well.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And then probably some of that, just like Nicole's saying, the systemic improvements, the cards, the shards, stuff like that, should be able to hit a 27 construction
Right.
season. But if you're doing a hotspot intersection redesign,
Right.
then that might not. And now
Correct.
just one thing we're running into with the curve warning sign program is the design. They need to design with the proper layout, spacing, and all that stuff. So even that sign program needs some significant design work.
Mhm.
Just something to think about.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to bring up? Comments, discussion, about anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. What do you guys, is there a budget? Is there a budget soon? Do we know what CHIPS appropriations are going to be? What are you hearing, Bob?
Neither Nicole or I are in the governor's office, so I don't know about.
I didn't know if sometimes things trickle down,
So you're a miracle worker,
Yeah. Listen, you could go to the janitor in most of these buildings and find out some of the greatest secrets. So I didn't know if you guys had some connections up there.
No, we're still here. No connections.
All right. So you have no idea when or what it even does. It look like the appropriations are going to be the same or more or some or what? Do you have any? Are you hearing anything at all?
We haven't heard. We can check with our LPU and get back to you on chips. I think the last I heard was flat, but
Yeah. All right. Well, it is what it is. Do you guys have a replacement for Lance or?
we do have an interim. Basically, he is an assistant commissioner coming down from main office, James Rusak, and he is basically doing double duty as our regional director, and he's assistant commissioner. So I think they just had a recent civil service exam for those high level positions. And I would think that they would maybe late fall, early winter be making an official appointment as a new regional director.
Well, he's probably burning time anyway, right? So he's still on the books. You guys do that at the state too?
Yeah, he think the Lance, our previous regional director, probably is still on till at least the end of May.
Yeah.
But physically, he's not in the building anymore. He's on vacation.
I guess the last question is we're looking at Ferry, if we can get the weather to cooperate, Ferry Street around Memorial Day. So I don't know if any of the Region 8 dignitaries, if you guys want invites or, I mean, obviously we could reach out to elected officials, but I don't know, is that something that you guys even care about or?
Oh, we always care about Ferry Street. Yeah.
I figure it's like, I mean, what do you do in the region? What do you do? 500 bridges a year? I mean, I figure if you went to every bridge opening, you'd never be in the office. Or street opening and turtle crossing and.
Well, Ferry Street had a bunch of different things with it, right?
More the merrier. Tutson.
Specialty programs. So yeah, either just send it into you have our RD's office email. Is that what you're looking for?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to send it to you guys and then you can figure it out who goes and who gets invited. Yeah, but I was just kind of curious if there was somebody on hand that we should invite, but I'll let you guys take care of that.
Yeah, we also have a public information officer, Heather, that does things like that with ribbon cuttings and press conferences and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Bring the big scissors.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Does anyone else?
Yeah, quick, Patrice, I just wanted to ask Bob, last time we spoke, we talked about doing repaving on State Route 9J and Fairview Avenue. He said that would probably happen in April, May now. Is that because of the budget or is that still on target this year or do we know?
No, that would not would not be affected by the budget, hopefully. And the
Okay.
9J paving, I don't know if Nicole has that. We mentioned that last time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely still happening this year. I'm not entirely sure if Tina already went out for bid on it or not. I don't know when, but it should be sometime this construction season. Yes,
Great. Okay.
I can ask for some more details and follow up if you'd like.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah,
there
we'd
was-
we'd actually like some details, if you don't mind.
Do you guys have the limits on that one, or did you need that?
I think we're just looking for start dates to get an idea.
Okay. Yeah. I'll reach out to Tina and see what the status of that is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think both of those, Nicole, both of those are not D contracts, right? They're both
Correct. They're both FOBs. Yeah.
three on board, so they're going to be done under our residency with the contractor. That process goes much faster. It's much more efficient and it's cheaper for us.
That's
So,
exactly what we heard.
Yeah. Well,
And we've been hearing it for a while now.
We just heard it mentioned last time I was checking in, that's all.
yeah, but last time we mentioned it, the plants are closed. There's no paving going on. So now we're just opening up now for the season, right?
Yeah, right.
So about the residency funds, how does that work? Do they have a certain, like we have a certain amount of money allocated to the county? Does the residency have a certain amount of funding allocated towards work in Columbia County that they are to complete in each construction season, or how's that work?
Yeah, they do. They have residency maintenance funds, but that is not what we're talking about for these two projects. Above and beyond that, off of the capital program, we can give the residency funds if they are able to do some projects additionally themselves faster and cheaper. We'll use capital program funds, and that's what we're doing for 9J and Route 9. We're actually taking money off of the capital program and giving it to the residency to pave these roads.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so I guess we get motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned, and see you next time. And thanks for everyone for coming and participating. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.